Hello everybody. Hope you can hear me well. I'm going to try to talk a little bit louder so that you can hear me better. Apparently in the past it's been harder to hear me, so I'm going to just try to talk it up a little bit. So the subject for this lecture will be DDev. This is something that I read a good deal in college, and you all are interested in as a pet project or a thing that you read a lot. So I just wanted to give you some of the parts. There's basically four parts to DDev. The first part being that collapse of the economy, a growth-based economy, is inevitable. The second part is defense to the economic decline causing war. So basically you want to say economic decline does not cause war. The third argument is all of your impacts, right? Your many reasons why growth-based economies cause extinction, right? And you have those built into little modules like growth-based economies cause pandemics, those cause extinction. Growth-based economies cause inequality, those cause extinction, etc. So you have those, and the fourth part is that the collapse now, the plan would cause, or that, but basically that whatever you would cause a transition to a more sustainable style of economy. That it would cause a transition away from growth-based economies to more hippie, commune-esque sort of things. So I'm just going to break down some of these parts. There are a few different reasons why colonization or collapse is inevitable. The first is the notion of credit. For you all that aren't familiar, credit is basically when you take a loan from either a private company or the government. The problem is that right now, and you can find many articles on this, that we are in one of the most unequal times in history, especially relative to the 1920s, for example, where there was the Roaring Twenties, where it was incredibly unequal. Think Great Gatsby or something like that. But basically, right now, a few facts that I heard were basically that a year from now, the top 1% will own half of all of the wealth. The problem is that due to wage disparity, people aren't being paid more. So think about this as people today are getting paid the equivalent of what they were getting paid in 1973. So that's more money because it's keeping up with inflation, but their buying power is basically the same as 1973. So long story short, people have not a lot of money. Inequality is rising, and what happens is when inequality rises, individuals who want to send their children to college, who want to be able to afford a new home, who want to be able to afford a car, all these very expensive things that you can't just pay out of pocket, right? It's not like a cheeseburger. You can't just do these things. They don't have access to capital. That's basically like extra money or loan accessibility. So they usually take high interest loans that usually aren't the best, safest loans, but they do that because they have no other options. The problem with this is that because people don't have real money to give, they keep on taking out these loans, credit loans. And then from that, a bank, so you take out a loan from Citibank. Citibank then assumes that you will at some point in time pay them back, pay them regularly, etc. And then they take your money and then they invest in the stock market. Sometimes these can be high risk, sometimes they're very basic and not very risky at all. This adds to the complexity because at some point individuals cannot keep up with their credit payments because there aren't good enough jobs out there. So if I have an interest loan, a high interest loan, that means that my loan keeps on getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and at some point I have to default, which basically means you say, I can't pay it back, I'm going bankrupt. The money that they thought was there, they moved to another place and invested, actually is like poof, it doesn't really exist. And so the issue with that is that there's a lot of money circulating in the economy that is never going to be paid back and doesn't really exist. That causes an inevitable collapse of the economy. That's what caused the 2008 crisis, is that a lot of people were investing money that they thought was going to exist because people were going to pay back their home loans, but then it turned out that the money didn't exist because people couldn't afford to pay back their home loans, and individuals on Wall Street were doing some very volatile investments. So that's one of the reasons. I understand that's a long explanation, but if you did even a portion of that warranting, I don't think there would be a lot of good responses to it, and I think that you would be able to win a collapse inevitable argument. The second argument is that just the economy has become more and more complex, right? It's not about trading with two friends anymore. It's about trading in between countries. It's trading in between thousands of private companies. It's exchanging in between individuals, and it's trading, commodities like oil and you know oil and gas and um, even coffee futures and all kinds of things. So many different things are being traded, and everybody's economies are so complex. They become so interconnected and complex that when one of them is messed up, all of them get messed up. So we can see the 2008 example again, right? The U.S. economy declined, and that caused everybody else's economy to decline. Um, so that was problematic too, and that those types of crises are going to happen more in the future. The third reason, and you can subpoint this, is basically that there's an inevitable decline of resources that are required to continue the economy going the way that it is. So, for example, trees, right? The quantity that we're deforesting of trees is very high. One interesting fact is that just the beef industry alone has deforested the Amazon rainforest the equivalent size of Portugal, and that's just simply so that there's places for cows to eat, and have space for them to eat. So this is from their huge beef industry that in a lot of ways supports America's love of fast food, as well as other countries' love of fast food, but generally just beef as a whole. If there's no trees, right, we're unable to make homes, we're unable to create paper. You can think of all the reasons why wood is a good thing, right? The second one is water, right? It's kind of scary actually. This is the one that I'm most worried about, is that there's extreme shortages of water. I've seen some statistics that say that by 2050, half of the United States will have water shortages. So that's pretty problematic too, right? No water, you can't drink. People are more likely to fight over these resources, which is definitely one of your impacts. But the economy cannot go without water. 70% of the Earth is water, but that's salt water, and only a small percentage of it is fresh water, and that's our Great Lakes. So it's a short resource, right? You can also talk about oil and natural gas, right? Those are finite resources. Yes, we can find a lot of it, but eventually those things run out, and there's no question about whether or not if we run out of oil, or the price of oil skyrockets, and we don't have any alternate solutions in the short term, then the economy would definitely collapse for sure. I mean, if you can imagine $12 a gallon gas, things wouldn't be able to move around. You wouldn't be able to move around. Those companies, despite the fact that they were able to charge a higher price for gas, probably wouldn't have nearly as much. The countries that were relying upon gas wouldn't be able to make nearly as much profit, or they would make short-term profit, but then they'd run out of it, and then their economy wouldn't be able to work. So there's lots of reasons why oil shortages, which are inevitable, right? It's a finite resource, will hurt or collapse the economy. So those are three separate reasons, right? The credit crunch or credit bubble, the interconnectedness of the economy, as well as the shortage of resources. So I'm going to go to the second part, which is the sort of economic decline does not cause war. A few different reasons. The first one is that economic collapse causes countries to turn inward. Niall Ferguson writes a short card that everybody uses, which is basically that when in World War II the economy collapsed, Germany was forced to turn inward. They were unable to go out and be militaristic because they didn't have the money for it. It was only when their economy became better that they were able to go out and attack other people. So basically their economy got really, really bad. I mean, to the point where people had wheelbarrows full of bread, wheelbarrows full of money to buy one loaf of bread. So a loaf of bread would be like $100, $200. Their money became totally worthless. Like people just used to light the money on fire for warmth. So they were not out doing military things. Only when their economy was saved and it increased, that is what caused the sort of militarization of Germany. That answers the argument that a lot of people make, which is, economic decline in World War II proves. Your argument would be, no, the decline that the status quo does needs to have a total collapse. It's only when we come in and we save it, we make it better, that the bad impacts happen. If we go to a total collapse, we're totally incapable of expanding militarily. So we turn inward. The second argument is that, and I can give you this card, is basically that The war scenarios are totally lies. They're fabricated, which means made up. The reason why the ultra-rich say that economic decline will cause war is because they have a big interest in getting money from the government, right? Banks got billions of dollars and then gave themselves, pay raises and things like that. After the '08 crisis, people who work in the military industry are always going to say, if our economy goes down, then we're going to have to go to war, right? Because that means that the government has to give, companies like Boeing and Raytheon and Lockheed Martin more and more money to make better weapons and things like that. Basically, you're saying that, it's like think about if I was if I was a mechanic, right? And your car's broken, and you come to me and I say, oh man, that tailpipe, it's real busted. You're going to need to pay me $1,000. It's like, well, that guy has an interest in saying your car is super broken because he or she is trying to make a lot of money, right? In the same way, for somebody, authors who are writing for, places like the Heritage Foundation, and these people who have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo, of course, are going to say if things change, then bad stuff will happen. That's just a gimme. So you basically say that the war scenarios are totally made up. The last argument that you want to make is that if you win your inevitability claim, who cares, right? Because if the economy is going to collapse in the future, the war that we would go to would be even worse because we would be more built up military. At least now, there's the possibility that before we've made these ultimate crazy super weapons or built more nuclear weapons or become more militaristic, that the war would not kill everybody or the war would not be nearly as bad. So in the future, if you win your collapse inevitable argument, then there's really no difference in between now and later, except for later it would be worse. So it's better to do it now. So even if it does, sort of like your even if statement, even if they win, economic decline does cause war, now is better than later. It's kind of like when you were little and you were like riding on your skateboard or your bike and you were just learning how to do it and you started going down the hill and you were like, uh-oh, I'm getting out of control. You would have been much better off if you just jumped halfway through, but usually you don't because it's too scary, and then you get to the end and then you like really hurt yourself. I don't know if you all ever did that, but I definitely did. So you would have been way better off if you just jumped early, right? You're gonna crash either way, but at least halfway down you're only gonna get some straight knees instead of breaking your arm or something, right? The third one, which I think you have a good handle on, so I'm not going to go too much into, is the explanation of all the scenarios, right? These are almost like cap impacts, that growth-based economies that are focused solely on growing more and more and more and larger and larger and larger, those types of economies are more likely to cause many impacts. So, disease, right? The more interconnected our economies are, the more likely we are to fly to each other, ship things, etc. The more likely we are to spread disease. Those things cause extinction, right? The deforestation argument that we talked about before, that's likely to cause biodiversity loss, right? We're cutting down lots of trees, we're hurting things. That's bad. It causes extinction, right? For your diner card or complexity argument. Water wars, oil wars, food wars, right? All these shortage-based arguments, people are much more likely, and you can pull this trump card and you can say, look, their war scenario, mad checks, because we'll make mutually assured destruction, right? Because say we have an issue with Russia over Ukraine, we can still say, look, we're unhappy about the situation, but we're not going to blow each other up with nuclear weapons because there's the possibility of diplomacy, there's the possibility of containment, right? There's a possibility of sanctions, right? There's all these things we can do about a political crisis, but when there's a 100% shortage of water and food, that's a try or die scenario, right? We either try to get food and whatever else from other countries, or we're going to die. So, food shortages, water shortages, those things are more likely to cause war than anything else because because they are essentially the only option. People can't live without those things. People can live unhappily about a political situation, but they can't live without food or water. So if there's one country that has food and water left, or oil or whatever, other countries are going to be more likely to be militarily aggressive. Um, so um, you should also definitely talk about this argument about K waves. That's essentially that when the economy, it is studied on the American University. You can definitely find these cards, but basically that they looked at a study that whenever the economy went up, that people were more likely to go to war. This is kind of like the argument we were talking about before, where we invest more of our economy, um, a higher percentage of our economy in weapons of war, and we're more likely to use them. We feel like we're more likely, we can benefit through expansion and things like that. So K waves is basically the argument historically over the last, I think, many years. It's a long-term study that indicates that we're more likely to go to war. The countries are more likely to go to war if the economy is increasing. So that can also answer the economic decline does not cause war. Your impact turn that you're saying economic decline prevents war. The last thing, which really is the hardest part of this, and you should spend some time on, certainly, is the transition argument. The very, very first thing you want to do with this transition is when they're making, you can't cause transition, your transition won't work. The very, very first thing you always want to say is, look, we have won that your growth-based economy will cause extinction. It is inevitable. You are going to kill us in these 5 ways. So we must, like I said before, we must try or die, right? We have to try this. Even if it's not the best solution, it's better than nothing at all. So that's the way you want to front end it. It's kind of like when somebody says, well, yeah, your cap doesn't solve everything. It's like, well, yeah, but if we win that you link to capitalism, capitalism causes extinction, it's still preferable that we try to do something, even if it is minuscule and unlikely. The second argument you want to make is you want to we turn inward and we do more localized economies. So the way to think about this is that if we really, really let the economy collapse, it's kind of like tough love for the economy. What I mean by tough love is like a parent who kind of lets you make a lot of your own mistakes and lets you fall, so you can realize how bad it hurts to fall. And so the problem is that the way our economy works now is that we constantly move in, we intervene to resolve the economic, the decline, and then we fix it, and then we just do the same stuff and we grow more, and then we decline a little bit and we fix it, and we become bigger and bigger and bigger. Instead, we're just saying, just let it happen. Just let the economy collapse so that people can see how awful it is when the economy collapses, and how bad growth-based economies are. Theoretically, this causes people to. It's kind of like, or another analogy would be like, if you put your hand near fire and you say, oh, that's kind of warm, right? The person who says, don't touch that, it's going to burn your hand, doesn't allow the person to realize how bad it might hurt, right? So when you put your hand in the fire and you say, oh my God, ah, you scream or whatever, then you get all those burns. You realize, well, I can't put my hand in the fire. So what the plan does basically says, just let him put his hand in fire. He'll figure it out, right? So by doing that, it'll cause people to move towards more sustainable ways of living. So this means probably more bartering rather than a totally money-based system. This means more community gardens, community exchange of things, right? Probably not as much international trade, but rather domestic trade. This means not living so, I guess, greedily, right? Living more simplistic ways of living, and also creating, more durable, more lasting products. This looks more like individualized sort of communes. What it also means too is that we can continue doing a lot of the same things that we're doing now. We just would not grow and expand. There's certain ways to leverage this in terms of monetary policy to remain roughly the same, but without the incredible expansion. So that's just a short sort of intro to DDEV. Again, sorry this was a long time coming. Please feel free to shoot me emails or questions, but I hope this is a little bit clearer for you. Look through all the camp files and find the best cards of each. But these should give you some warrants and things to say. And even if you don't have a card to back up some of the things I've told you, you could still say those things next to a card or something like that. These can supplement a lot of your cards too. So if you don't have those exact things the way that you wanted to, then you can still use it as supplement. But either way, please feel free to send me emails. I'm looking forward to hearing from you, and congratulations overall. Look, from the emails and texts and things like that I'm getting from Mr. McCabe, it sounds like you all are doing an amazing job, and keep it up. Hard work pays off, and I can tell that you all are working really hard. So I'm very proud to be part of this organization. I just wanted to give you a heads up about DDEV and some of the ways that you can read it. So please feel free to send me emails, and I look forward to talking to you all soon. Oh, do you see my cool shirt? Oh, I got my Zapata shirt on. There you go. Alright, have a wonderful night, and I will see you all soon.